Hi everyone, it's Tuesday night, it's winning, it's live online. So pleased to be with you. Again, looking forward to a great 25 minutes together. And I've got such a great topic. It's all about weatherproofing. And no, I'm not going to give you tips on rising damp. It's a different kind of weatherproofing. And so maybe just a little bit of a heads up, those of you who've forgotten, but next week is a special event. Maybe for some it's just seen as, it's just commercial and it's just trying to make money out of us as the consumers. But next week is Valentine's Day. And, I think it's a great opportunity to really appreciate people in your life who you love. It doesn't necessarily have to be a partner, but just appreciating people in your life. And so just a reminder, next Friday, 14th of February, it is Valentine's Day. So I dare you to do something special for someone who you love and appreciate. I know I've got plans for John for the 14th, and so come on, don't let me down. I'll tell you all about it when we get together next Tuesday. Hey, great to see you, King and Queen. Hi to everyone who's maybe just jumped on. Welcome to Winning Keys to Living a Winning Lifestyle. Hey Zama, good to see you. And yeah, it's about giving you practical keys, things in your hand so that you can live a winning lifestyle. I might look a little bit different tonight because I am working off of my iPad instead of my phone. So hope you've got something to absorb notes with. If you've got an excellent memory, then all you need is your brain. And so are you ready for tonight? Make sure that there's as little disruption around you as possible so that you can really, hey Carla, so that you can lean in and focus. Tonight, as always, is a little bit challenging, maybe a lot of challenging, but that's okay. So just a bit of a heads up, I like to keep in touch with what's happening on the news. So I follow BBC, but particularly CNN. And, I'm always, even today, I'm always amazed at just their weather conditions. I mean, if you think of, in particular, when they have hurricanes, especially in Florida, and I know from about Feb until late into the fourth quarter, that's kind of like their hurricane window period. And just, listening to guys doing interviews, I just think the most recent hurricane that they had was the Milton. And I think that was about last year, November, October. But just how guys who live in that region are incredibly weather focused, obviously, because if you're living through hurricanes and tornadoes and cyclones, you have to be quite weather vigilant. But it just got me thinking that, when, for example, Florida, when they're in that window period of where it's particularly, it's hurricane season for them. And, that they kind of live their lives based on what the weather's saying, like, is there an imminent hurricane on its way? And obviously I get it. You have to be vigilant. They've weatherproofed their homes. They've built their homes with certain kinds of materials. There's certain building laws and regulations. They've also got their emergency protocol, like if a hurricane is on its way, they know what to do. But what I wanted to draw out of that tonight is that sometimes we can weatherproof our lives to such a degree that we're so busy focused on potential storms that we're actually not living our lives. We kind of we're waiting for something to happen. Storms are part of life. Storms are inevitable. But I just feel so challenged. We can't sit waiting for the inevitable. I guess it's, an analogy for me is if you live in your, as you've got this beautiful home with a magnificent garden, with a view of the sea or a view of the mountains, and you've got this amazing garden furniture, but you never put the cushions out because you're afraid that a storm's coming. So you never sit outside. You're constantly When's the storm going to come? We have to live prepared and ready for adverse circumstances. And sometimes we live like that with our lives. You know, if I look at in my current season, where in 2024 I was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer, and yes, I've weatherproofed my life as much as I can. I've had chemo, I've done everything that my medical team advised. I've weatherproofed my life as much as I can. But now I'm living it. You know, I'm not living waiting for, you know, when is going to be the next lot of news around the tumor. I'm living my life large in every day. I'm focusing on God. I'm focusing on His promises. I'm not focusing on when is the storm going to come. And, you know, I can't live my life dictated to by the cancer. And I think sometimes, you know, we all have storms, different storms, whether it be relational or, in my case, health or financial. But we can't live our lives stunted, waiting for the storm to come. I think if we, you know, sometimes we can slip into that space, completely understand it. You know, if you are given bad news, if there's a turn of events in your life that bring about things that you hadn't planned for, things that are catching you off guard. I completely understand where there's like a kind of grinding to a halt, a recalibrating, a rethinking, a restructuring. But we can't live our lives dictated by those storms. I think if we do, we can sometimes lose sight of what our goal and purpose actually is, because we get stuck in the zone of preoccupation with the coming storm, or even preoccupation with the storm you're facing. And this can sometimes put us in a position where we live from a place of being reactionary instead of from a place of being action focused. So let's take an example. Maybe you're diagnosed, a friend of mine, her husband was diagnosed with Parkinson's recently. And so yes, that is going to be an adjustment to their lives. Yes, it does require chronic medication. Yes, it is degenerative. But they're living life. They're living life while they have it. They're not losing sight of their goal and purpose. They're not losing sight of God's promises and the hope that they have in God. Totally aware of the storm, which in their instance is Parkinson's. But they're living in the moment. They are not living waiting and living sort of, well, that means I'm going to have to stop living because I've got Parkinson's coming. No, it's I'm going to do as much as I can while I have it. And so we need to, yes, be conscious of storms in our lives, but not give them too much airtime that they become the dominating factor. You know, God came that we might have life and lots of it. God doesn't bring Parkinson's and cancer and hurricanes and tornadoes and foreclosure of businesses. He doesn't bring that. That stuff happens. It's inevitable. There's always going to be an inevitability around life because it's the world we live in. But He will definitely use those storms to bring growth, even to bring blessing. You know, Romans 8:28 says, all things work together for the good of those who love Him and who've been called according to His purposes. But we don't have to further empower the storms of our lives by going into lockdown choices. Live life today and live it large. You know, sometimes we can also live our lives trying to avoid oncoming storms, and we play it safe. Let's look at in the case of if you've been hurt either in a friendship or in a relationship with someone, and you've been badly hurt. Maybe there's been broken trust, and you know your reactionary state would be, I'm barricading my heart in, I'm going into lockdown. I'm not going to let people into my space because I don't want to get hurt again. So I'm not going to enter into meaningful relationships where I'm authentic and vulnerable. I'm never going to allow anyone to get the better of me again. Now, I understand when you've been through hurt, there needs to be a season of healing the hurt. And you may never get over it, but you can get around it. But the point is that I'm making is don't go into lockdown choices where you lock out all relationships. Allow your heart and your inner person to go through a process of healing. But then live life while you have it. You know, if we go into lockdown in this example of relationships, if we go into lockdown choices around being in relationships, we're not just robbing ourselves, we're robbing others. Because, you know, God will speak to us and work through others. He speaks through others into our lives. And often our healing comes through others. So what point am I trying to make here? Don't give a storm and weatherproofing your heart and your life so much focus and attention that it dictates. You know, we need to live in the moment. It's like taking steps of faith. You know, the Bible teaches that God says, if you love me, you will obey me. Does he want us to live in lockdown? Does he want us to live in fear of potential bad news that may or may not be coming? No, he didn't. John 10:10 says he's come that we might have life and have lots of it. You know, we need to work at not allowing people and storms and circumstances and family to dictate more than they should about your destiny. So if a life storm comes, and it will, because it's inevitable, hold on to God and hold on to what you have in today. Look for things to be grateful for in today. Remind yourself of his faithfulness. Remind yourself of his kindness. I was talking to someone today who tried online dating for a period of time. And the person just said to me, when I look at what was out there through this online dating couple of apps, and the person said, I'm so grateful that God protected me from what I found on the other side of that dating app. So even though the person did not find a partner, the person saw God moving in that situation, and it was through protection. You know, it's worshiping in the face of a storm. What does that do? When we worship, you know, there's that very cliched saying, it's a bit cheesy, but it speaks of dancing in the rain. But when we worship in the face of a storm, we're actually showing God, I really trust you, because we shouldn't be worshiping in a storm. When we worship in the storm, our focus shifts off storm onto him. And remember, God is the source of everything. He is the author and perfecter of our lives. The Bible says we are complete in him. So dance in the rain. Look at what you have. You know, we often, and it's completely understandable, we'll ruminate over what we've lost and go over and over and over. And yes, it's tragic. Yes, loss is tough. But when we focus on the Lord, when we live with what he's given us, we're able to get around those storms and the damage they've caused. But don't barricade yourself in from people and barricade yourself from living. Don't allow looming darkness to compromise your light. Don't allow looming darkness to compromise your joy and your hope. Don't just live in response to what's around you. For example, it's so easy to get into a conversation how bad our nation is. You know, the politics and sonar's coming up, and there's just so much corruption. And yes, I get all of that. But let's rather be atmosphere changers. Let's look at changing the atmosphere for good. You know, the weather of life is always changing the temperature, and weather conditions are always going to bring change. But don't stop living. Live focusing on what you have. Live focusing on God. Live focusing on his hope and his joy and his restoration, and the fact that he will never leave our side, even in the toughest and hardest of storms. In fact, quite the contrary. He'll bring us through that storm. He'll bring blessing through the storm. But we've got to just let the barricade down long enough for the sunshine to shine in. And so let's look at Jesus as a beautiful example. Jesus knew he was coming to die. So he knew that that was the penultimate, that was the primary of his coming. Yes, he had 3 years ministering, but he didn't focus on the fact that he was going to die on the cross. He focused on the point at hand. He focused on living his purpose, didn't he? So he prayed for people. He loved people. He healed people. He guided and shaped them as his leaders. And, you know, I love in John 16, verse 33, where the Lord knew that we would face storms and it would be hard for us. But he's prepared us and he's equipped us to be able to go through those. Where John 16:33, where the Lord says, in this world there will be many troubles, but take heart, I've overcome the world. So even the storm that you're facing, based on what the promise is of this text, God's overcome what you're facing. And that might be a tough thing where you're thinking, yeah, but the person I love died. Yeah, but where are they today? You know, God's got the victory. They with Jesus in eternity. So it's hard for us who are left, but it's a victory because the person is now in their eternal home. So live. Jesus doesn't abandon us in our struggles. And remember, the ultimate victory's already been won. And God's peace is with us in the toughest of storms. I love Psalm 23 verse 4 in the Message that says, even when the way goes through Death Valley, I'm not afraid when you walk by my side. Your trusty shepherd's crook makes me feel secure. If we're barricaded in, if we've weatherproofed our minds and our lives and our hearts so much, how is the truth of God's word going to shine in? Then we're not going to live. You know, when we barricade and weatherproof and focus so much on the imminent or the current storm of life, we kind of just block out the good. So what do we do? What do we do with this? So maybe ask yourself the question, where have you packed away things in your life for fear of storms coming? Have you packed away your relational life because you've been let down, you've been disappointed? Have you packed away the faith side of your life because you've been disappointed or let down? What part of your life have you barricaded? And maybe it's looking at, Lord, teach me how to slowly lower that barricade so that God can get access to heal the hurt. Sometimes we barricade him out. And how's he going to get in unless we allow him to? So maybe start, Lord, come in and heal the hurt. And then teach me slowly how to unbarricade my life, how to live not focused on the current or imminent storm, not weatherproofing my life so much that there's just no access. We can't live our lives on hold for the fear of storms. Live today with what you have and let God be God. You and I can't control. In fact, we have authority to change things pertaining to us. We have no control of things externally. We don't have control over people. We don't have control over circumstances, and we don't have control over storms. So don't be you and God. Let God deal with that. You work on this, because that's the authority that God has given us. Do what you can and let God be God in your life, and live grateful. Live appreciating what you have, and live life like Matthew 5 says, open heart, open hand, open house. Open. You know, when I look at people in Florida, live in a hurricane zone, not many of them move. They actually stay there because they focus on the beauty of the place. They focus on the lifestyle that they have living there. Yes, the storms come, but they're prepared for them. So my challenge to you tonight is, don't be dictated to by storms. You tell storms about the joy of the Lord that is your strength. You tell storms that faith as small as a mustard seed will move a mountain. You tell the storm instead of the storm telling you. I hope I've given you food for thought tonight, but do something with it. Live life open. And it is a process, and we need God to teach us. But the more open we are to Him, the more open we are to others. So hope that you've been blessed tonight. So good having so much of you join me online. Good to see your names. Hello to all of you who I didn't say hello to. Don't forget, share this with someone who maybe you feel would benefit from it. Love seeing those emojis going up which say, hey, something's resonating with me. And yeah, just live life. Live life. Live the life that God's given you. Don't live with regret. Don't live with I wish I had and I should have. Do it today. Do it today. Connect people to Jesus. Live lifting lives. At the moment, we're doing a 21-day of prayer and fasting, Shine Our Light challenge. And today we needed to gift someone with something. And I did. And it brought me so much joy. I mean, it was just a Kit Kat that I bought for someone. But live life and look at how can I be an influence in someone else's life for Jesus. Can't wait to see you next Tuesday. Have an awesome week. God bless. Love others. Live life. Bye, everyone.